It's me. Hi everyone, welcome to the show. So today we're going to talk about religion, spirituality, faith, Jesus, and we're going to sit down with my wonderful Mormon friend Donna a little bit later. We get into the nitty-gritty, guys, don't you worry. But before we get into it, let's see what the cards have to say, shall we? Okay, the universe sent us the Page of Wands. So in tarot, wands represent action. The page is young and at the dawn of their life. So the Page of Wands is curious, impulsive, maybe connecting back with your inner child, finding that wonder in life. I feel the need to tell you to jump in, whatever it is. Okay, let's get into it. Religion. Wow, big topic. I was not raised religious under any sort of institution. My grandparents were religious, but my parents chose not to raise us in any church or temple. My mom is a pretty spiritual person, so I grew up like really, into crystals and like in tune with the energy around me and the earth and that kind of stuff. But they were so much more focused on like creating good values and encouraging us to be curious about our own faith practice, whatever that may be. And I grew up to be like not an atheist, but somebody that doesn't really subscribe to any like institution of religion, or so I thought. When I started diving into this topic, I realized that in a lot of ways I subscribe to different kinds of religions. Like astrology is something that I'm very passionate about, and tarot is something that I'm very passionate about. And they have stories and metaphors and guidelines and ideas, which is essentially a religion to a certain extent. When we're talking about religion, we're really talking about like a vessel for faith, I think. I think we all have different, terms for this kind of like higher power. I read this really awesome quote once that was like, some people call it magic, some people call it prayer, some people call it a coincidence, some people call it a placebo. We're all acknowledging its existence. We're just like putting a different name on it. So we all kind of agree when you think about it. Hello, madam. Did you come to join the show? Ginny came on in. Come on up. Oh. I'm also just like kind of a realist. I really think that we are just like tiny little humans like on a planet. Do we really know anything at all? I definitely think that this is like life is some sort of sick game that our souls are playing, and that, I believe in reincarnation and that we come back and do things over and learn lessons and stuff. That's kind of my vibe. But I also just like really acknowledge that I have no idea what's going on. And I do celebrate Christmas. And I think that might bother me. Like, why? No, I like Christmas. Christmas is fun. Holidays are fun. I think what bothers me is that Christmas is just so widely recognized here in Canada and North America in general. And it would be nice if we had the same level for all of the like big major holidays. Can you imagine how much time off we would have? How much celebrating we would do? I mean, we shouldn't just know about frickin' Santa Claus. We should learn about all the like fun holiday people. You know what I mean? Anyways, I'm not going to say no to presents, so whatever. I kind of think that sense of community and drive to be with other people and like shared values is a really main factor of why religion is attractive to so many people. It can be such a great way to just find a tribe and a group of people that you just really align with and love. Family comes in all different forms, chosen or blood, and I think a lot of people consider their church or their temple like their extended family. And I think that is like really, really cool. I have a problem with restrictions. I'm not a rules girl. To me, like the whole point of human life is like freedom. Like freedom is just like the core of my existence. And the idea of following a book of rules on my like little fun human adventure, give me a break. Yeah, right. Are you kidding? I would rather run around in grass or something. No, like I have a lot of like religious beliefs. I just don't, I want to make them. I don't like okay, here's something I noticed. When it comes down to religion, any religion, so many of them have the same core values, and they're usually broken into two categories. What are you doing for yourself and what are you doing for others? I definitely share that sentiment of like life. I think those are our two purposes in life, to take care of ourselves and to do a little bit of service to the world. We're kind of all on the same page here. I think we're just using different words. really. My like religion, my personal religion is built on a rule book or like a book of experiences, really, or not even really experiences. A lot of them are just kind of inherent values and characteristics of like who I am. My biggest one is honesty. I am just such a big believer in living a life of truth for myself and being truthful and honest to others. I don't believe in being passive. I don't believe in avoiding hard conversations. I believe in communication. And I just kind of think that honesty is like the height of respect because it's difficult. It's difficult to say things to somebody. It's difficult to tell somebody how you feel. But that is such a strong core value of mine that I've just always kind of felt in my gut. I didn't read it in a book. It wasn't something that was told to me. I don't ever remember like a significant experience with lying or anything like that. It's just something that has always been really important to me. Okay, something that I found kind of interesting when I started getting really into astrology the last couple of years was that most of my zodiac sign placements are in signs that really value honesty above everything else. Like I'm a Sagittarius sun, for example, which is widely considered to be like the most honest and blunt sign of them all. And I felt like really seen by this. I felt very like validated. And a lot of these correlations are kind of what made me get really into astrology. So it might seem like very kooky to you. And that's so fine. But it's really the same as somebody who might be connecting with passages in the Bible. You know, there's no explanation for why we connect with certain things and why we don't. The point is we're allowed to do it. While I'm here, I should just throw in like a little bit of a trigger warning. I know religion is a really tough topic for people. If you find yourself getting really triggered, maybe just take a little break or just skip this episode. We are going to be talking about really big subjects like abortion and things like that later in the episode. So just take a little extra care when listening. I'm not talking about my like quote unquote religion because I think it's better than yours. Not at all. I'm sharing it because I think it's a fun conversation. I honestly don't think that this should be a taboo topic. No religion takes away pain, okay? We're humans, we suffer. We're allowed to just find faith in whatever that may be. We're just not allowed to impose it on others. You fix the world by fixing yourself. Okay, back to it, sorry. I think that everybody should try to learn what makes them tick and try to be curious about other people and learn what makes them tick, but with like acceptance, which is another kind of religious belief of mine. I believe in completely accepting myself because I have tried to change so many times. I can't. Others also, like people just have different choices than you. They have completely different experiences. They have completely different lives. And you kind of just like, you have to accept people for who they are. Like it doesn't really matter. I think there's very few people in this world who are inherently like evil. I do think that energy exists on the planet, but I think it's very rare to find. I think most of the time humans are just kind of wounded. So I believe in taking a little bit of a compassionate and radical acceptance approach to human beings because that's like a part of growth. Another thing I think is important, wanting more for yourself, wanting more and better for the world and the people around you and giving a little bit, that desire, wanting to like, see change in your lifetime, whether that's just for you, just for your family and small community, just like in some small way, wanting to see that kind of evolution, I also think pleasure is like that's like something that I hold to such a high importance in my life. Like I'm a tiny human. I just would like to have a good time. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy myself. I want to eat really good food. I want to see the world. I want to have a good time. Is that such a problem? And also I want other people to have a good time. And what's my role in that? Well, maybe I need to bring extra positivity and extra love and a little extra like goodness to the world. I also choose to be kind, and I know this seems like a really generic, obvious religious belief, but being kind is not actually something a lot of people value. I do value other people's comfort. I love seeing other people feel comfortable. I like making other people feel safe. I like feeling safe. I like giving myself the kindness that I deserve. So I believe that that's an important part of human life as well, like just to learn how to be like loving and kind. I mean, love is kind of the whole point. Am I right or am I right? Well, it is for me. You should see my birth chart. It's fucked. I mean, so that's kind of like my religion, those core values. I mean, again, religion, when I think religion, I'm thinking like institution. And that is really what I just don't personally align with. But I really think that faith is something that everybody should have, whether they define that for themselves, whether they put that into science, or whether they put their faith, whatever it is, they have to have faith in something. I believe in choice. I don't believe that religion has any place in politics, period, at all, ever. No, it doesn't make any logical sense. Why would you tell me what to do? Because of your beliefs. I feel the juju that you're feeling too, but it's telling me something different. So can we just agree to disagree? I feel you, but it's okay. Your personal values that you feel in your gut and your body, they always have to be above the vessel for your religion. So your pastor or your priest or your rabbi or whoever your shaman, your freaking guide, whoever it is, you are still the connection to your God, to your deity, to your spirit, to your divine, to your universe, whatever. They can help you learn about some of the, philosophies and ideologies in some of these like religions and institutions. And that is great. But the second that you start putting texts and scholars and religious leaders above your own belief systems and values, that's when you have a problem. And I honestly think that every human at their core is mostly good. Where we were really able to connect with that, I think these really big, large, confusing issues wouldn't be so big and large and confusing, because we would all just be like, yeah, we should probably just be like kind, right? Or like we should probably just like not do that. I don't know. Just common sense is actually not common. And sometimes it's because we just want to like grasp onto something. We just want to believe in something. We want somebody to tell us the answer, but the answers are in you. The answers are inside your body. The answers are just right there waiting for you to grab them. And there are pathways to find more information or to dive into these answers and to dissect them. But ultimately, like, you really know the answer. And like, I think Jesus sounds like the coolest dude ever. So just so we're clear on that, the Jesus that I've heard about, the outcast guy, he sounds freaking sick. So we love Jesus. I mean, I met Donna actually while I was studying at Lahari Yoga to become a certified yoga teacher. I ended up getting into these really long, deep discussions about like religion and philosophy and ideologies. And I love her and I love her views. And I wanted to share them with you. So meet Donna. With that being said, you have a pretty hardcore religion, Mormonism.
Hardcore, yes, but hardcore, no.
Why do you say no hardcore?
Because it is a choice. It's something that I choose to do. It's not something that I have to do.
I love that. That's an important distinction that people forget.
Yes.
When did you first become a Mormon? Were you born into it?
I was raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Cool. So I grew up with it. My parents instilled really good work ethics and just ethics in general in my life. And I'm really thankful for them for that kind of foundation of upbringing and, being kind to people and working hard and, just overall being a good contributing member of society. Right. And they did a good job. Yay, mom and dad.
Yeah, we love that. We love a good
In
good
your
mom and
religion,
dad, right?
obviously, some people are anti-LGBT based on their own beliefs from the text. Now, you have a daughter who's gay. So how do you navigate that?
Easily.
Tell me.
Very easily. I believe in a God who loves his children. He loves all of his children. So why wouldn't I love her and accept her and accept all people who are following their heart with who they love and how they represent themselves and their sexuality? I don't understand everything. And I don't think anybody in this world understands everything. And so I'm okay with that ambiguity of not understanding everything, but focusing on the piece that I do know. The piece that I do know is that God loves his children.
How do you make peace with the text maybe saying something different?
I don't think the text says anything different, actually.
Interesting.
I've never seen it said anywhere I've seen translations and like interpretations of the text saying that.
So the key word is interpretation.
Yes.
And you don't believe in taking every interpretation.
No. Well,
you
you
make your
can't take
own?
every interpretation. There's great debate through theology about how do we interpret a particular text. Well, that text has been translated and retranslated and retranslated. So what has been taken out, what has been added in, what was the purpose in the translation by the translators, and then how am I interpreting that translation? There's a lot of places that we could add our own belief system, and that isn't necessarily a divine belief system.
Well, I mean, it is essentially like a book of metaphors and stories, right? So it's meant to be interpreted.
Yes, yeah. Well, Jesus taught in parables just for that purpose. He
Right.
goes, okay, I'm going to teach you in parables so that you will take the lessons that you need to learn at whatever time you need to learn them. And everyone is welcome to their own process, their own progress on that. I am a firm believer of there's lots of roads
Right.
to heaven, as it were. Right?
Just take one.
just follow yours.
Right.
Follow your path. And I don't know. I'm doing the best I can with my path.
Right.
And my children's path is their own path that they're going to follow. And part of me being a parent is allowing them to take their path.
I always believed that there were some pretty black and white passages that seemed to indicate that, you know, gay people were bad and stuff like that. If you haven't noticed already, obviously I haven't really read a Bible. My problem with these scriptures and books is that many interpretations of these texts have served as like vessels for hate crimes and bad behavior. A lot of the time, religious institutions are used as like almost like a access to power. And I think that these scriptures and texts are really like the cause of that, because they're turning something that's supposed to be interpreted into something that is fact. It's not. It's a story, right?
Your truth, God's truth, and then the text. Where do you sort of align them?
So we have these wonderful books of scripture, which is the Word of God.
Right.
And we need to study it and try to understand what is being taught in those books. Fantastic. Then it is, what am I learning? And what do I need in my life? Right? What are the truths for me? Then how am I reaching to God and finding out what He wants for me? And maybe He'll tell me in the text. Maybe He will tell me through a prompting,
Right.
a feeling, you know, a dream. I don't know. Like, everyone receives inspiration differently, and you've got to figure out how it works for you. It's almost like a vertical, this is a tool I have, and this is how I'm using that tool in the best way that I know how. And then this is asking for divine inspiration to understand the word, to know where to go for extra knowledge. Like, there's so many incredible Bible scholars, incredible stuff being done right now. I highly encourage people, like, go dive in. There's cool stuff happening and lots of great debate. Be inquisitive, be a seeker of truth. So whatever background you come from. I lived in Asia for many years, and I find beautiful truths in Asian religions, in Hinduism, in Buddhism. Like, there's just such beauty in faith practices. Faith practices.
Yeah.
The Muslim faith is beautiful.
Right. What you're saying is the texts are sort of like only the first step.
Oh, yes.
And they don't have to be this be all and end all. So when people are saying like, this is fact, they're really arguing an interpretation of something.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The theology has changed radically. If you just even take Christianity and the various sects within that, and everyone has a different interpretation of key points.
Yeah.
It's like, well, who has truth?
Right.
What resonates with you? And if you're asking the questions and people are shutting you down, then maybe you need to ask the questions somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's just not the avenue.
Right? And so for me, it's very much what resonates with truth.
Specifically your truth and your God's truth.
Yes. Yeah. It is a personal journey.
It is personal.
It is a very personal.
People
like,
really
faith is
forget that.
personal.
Very personal. There's a reason why it should stay out of politics and state, because at the end of the day, we have our own belief systems. And I find it really fascinating, especially you and I, because I was raised not religious really at all in any particular institution,
Okay.
even though you are a Mormon and I would be considered not an atheist, but like just a spiritual person,
Okay.
we have a lot of co-mingling beliefs. We believe a lot of the same things. But what I find really cool is that we can have differences. For example, you don't drink coffee, right?
Correct.
I love coffee. Okay. I might think Donna's a little crazy for not drinking coffee. And she might sit there and think, girl, you shouldn't be drinking coffee. But at the end of the day, we can coexist and have
Definitely.
it be okay.
Yes, definitely. And that's what I love about looking at the interfaith practices of where are we similar?
Oh, that's cool. Always finding a connection
Right,
point
right.
instead of focusing on the differences.
And something as small as different, I don't know, practices with food and beverage.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Like,
Yeah.
okay, if this is what we're going to argue about,
Right.
this is a pretty minor thing.
Right.
Like,
Right. But then what if it gets into these bigger discussions when we're talking about pro-choice, pro-life, these kinds of conversations?
I got to jump in here and note that I don't think pro-life is the right term to use in this discussion. It's not accurate. This movement has caused more deaths for women, and because of that, you can't really logically call it pro-life. It's a lot more accurate to just call it anti-abortion. There's a lot of people who think that they're quote unquote pro-life, but they're actually pro-choice. They just maybe wouldn't choose an abortion for themselves, and they wouldn't want anybody in their life to choose an abortion for themselves or whatever. It's a very strong belief of theirs. That's fine. You're allowed to have that belief. You're not allowed to enforce it on me. And you know, I really sympathize. Babies are everything. They are so special. And I understand the feeling that like if it was God's plan to bring a baby onto this earth, like how dare you not put that plan into motion. But we also are in a modern society and we're not underpopulated. Like we have a lot of humans. We don't need any more babies. So maybe it was God's plan for that person to have an abortion. And I'm honestly not saying that like to be sarcastic. I really, abortions don't come with no consequence. There are women who after having an abortion deal with lifelong emotional pain and suffering. It is like there's hormones, there's a lot going on with an experience like that. You never know what somebody's path is or like what God's plan is. You don't know what God's plan is. We are tiny humans. Access to abortions is essential for women's health. Period. I actually have like very personal reasons in my life. I would never choose to have an abortion. And that is such a privilege to be able to say. I have a really great support system and I have access to the type of care, and I would be able to make sure that that child is raised in a safe and loving environment. However, if something like went wrong with my pregnancy and, I needed to get a medical abortion to save my life, get that kid out of there. I need to live. I have things to do. So that makes me not pro-life because I don't want to die. And you know what? Yeah, maybe you'll have a really hard time if somebody close to you decides to have an abortion. Maybe it'll destroy you thinking about that possible baby. But you know what? That is yours to deal with. How do you navigate it? How do you navigate having like completely different belief systems as somebody that you love very dearly?
it doesn't matter if you have a spiritual practice, a faith practice, or if you're non-believing. These are big questions.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, all right, can we get a little guidance here? Just a smidge.
Right.
Just so that I feel right with myself and right with who I feel is my God.
Right. When you're doing that and maybe somebody around you or somebody that you love is making a decision that you don't agree with, that it's really the same concept. You still have to kind of make peace. The same way you're making peace with yourself, you have to make peace with others.
Well, if he's going to allow me to make choices, I better be prepared to allow other people to make choices for themselves. Right?
Tell them.
That's
a very good
the
point.
beautiful thing about agency, and we all can live our lives, but can we live them in harmony? Can we live them with curiosity to find out what somebody else's story is?
Cool.
And what their experience is, and maybe why they're making some of the decisions that they're making? I don't need to agree with your decisions.
Right.
But can I be curious about them and try to understand where you're coming from? And I think that is such an important mindset instead of completely disregarding someone because they made a different decision than you
Right.
did. It's like, well, of course you did. You have a different background.
Right.
And have had different life experiences. And
Right.
it may make perfect sense to me once I understand the story.
Yeah. You might not want to have an abortion because of your own beliefs, but if you can have a little bit of curiosity about why somebody else might need to or want to,
Exactly.
and just try to understand from a place of compassion, then it sounds like you'll be in a lot less pain and maybe less mad at God and have a better relationship with your truth.
Yeah, exactly.
I really, like, you make me feel so safe, which I think is a really, it's true.
Thank you.
I mean,
That's a lovely compliment.
I mean it. And I'll be totally honest with you. I don't often feel safe around very religious people because look at me. I'm a pansexual, polyamorous, like a total voodoo witch girl, like
And you're a
all over the
beautiful,
place.
beautiful person. I'm so glad you're in my life.
Oh, me too. Like, that's exactly what I mean. I love that I can exist as I am around you, and we have such differences.
I used to have a really stereotypical view of religion, and I feel really grateful to have connected with Donna. I hope the one takeaway you all have from this is that the goal is co-harmony, right? Like, we want to live in peace. So open your mind. You know, humans face incredible hardships in their life. We all face incredible hardships in our life, and we will continue to face them. And that is not easy, okay? So whatever you're turning to help you through that, it should be allowed and it should be accepted as long as you're not doing harm to other people. I mean, I don't know. We all do a little bit of harm sometimes, but you know what I mean? Like serious harm. I think one of the most painful parts of life is when you realize that something you believe to be true, like, isn't, or is just a little bit different. It is such a letdown. But for somebody who's religious, this can look like a crisis of faith. And that seems a little bit more like almost a grief. Like, who is this person that I've been praying to? Who is this divine spirit that I've been trusting? Because I feel like I don't even know them.
Have you ever had like a big crisis of faith?
Oh, yes.
Would you feel comfortable sharing about it?
I think it is something that a lot of people struggle with. And it is kind of that concept of when innocent people go through huge, horrific experiences.
Yeah.
You know that terrible things happen in this world.
Right.
Like, terrible things happen. And the question is, of course, why?
Mm-hmm. And what God is going to allow
Would
this.
allow this, right?
Right.
So that question, what God allows, fill in the blank.
Right. How did you make peace with that?
I think the peace I make with that is, again, knowing the character of the God that I worship. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If you want the glory, if you want the euphoria, if you want all of the good that could, all of the joy, you have to have the opposite, even though the opposite is pain and suffering.
It sounds a little bit like understanding that if we are accepting this higher power, we also have to know that we are just small, tiny little humans.
Yes.
And we don't maybe get the right to understand why
Exactly.
things happen
Right.
and the way the world works and what the purpose and the meaning of everything is. Like, do we really get to know that? Is there an answer for that? Not really.
Right. And so that's where faith comes in. Like, you will not
That
know
is what
everything.
that is.
That is
Because if you just had faith when things were good, you wouldn't be having any faith.
Like, can you
Right.
continue to believe that someone has your best interests at heart, even when the hardship is not taken away?
Right.
Something here is for my good.
Yeah.
Something.
Right.
I don't
maybe
know what
don't
it
know.
is.
That's exactly it.
I don't know
I
what
don't
it is.
know.
I am just going to keep plugging. I'm going to keep getting up. I'm going to keep reading my scriptures. I'm going to keep doing the things. I'm going to keep praying. I'm going to, right? And sometimes it's just quick. It's like an upward glance. It's like, come on.
Right. God, find that particular, your relationship with the conversation with your God, I really relate with it because I feel I have those conversations with what I refer to as my higher self.
Yeah.
So once again, we're two very different people who are ultimately striving for the same goal.
Right. And are we just using different terminology for the same
idea,
spiritual connection of guidance?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes we get stuck in the terminology that people are using, right? Like, so often it's like, oh, I can't meditate because I believe in prayer.
Right.
It's like,
well, they're kind of the same thing.
the same thing. Like, okay, like, well, let me just call it prayer
In
then.
fact, you've been meditated.
Right. Again, the similarities. Like, we're doing the same
The common
thing,
string.
right?
Yeah. It sounds like you have a pretty open and loving church that's always really accepted you, but that's not the case for all churches.
No.
So,
And it may not be the case for someone even in my congregation.
Right. The separation and stuff. Has that been difficult at all in the church?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at all. There is great understanding when you have given your all and it just doesn't work out.
Like a realistic,
yeah,
we are still humans.
Yes. And it takes, there's lots of moving pieces in any intimate relationship.
Of course.
And you work and you strive for the very best outcome. And yet sometimes it just doesn't work out. Does that shake my faith? A little bit. But again, I don't know the end. I've had to learn a few things in the process and be humbled.
Yeah.
Like really humbled.
And you're choosing your own happiness at the end of the day because that's all you can do. You're in charge of yourself, right?
Yeah. And it was not a light decision. It was a decision made over years and much prayer and great deliberation, and really only a decision that came because I received an answer to prayer that said, you need to walk away.
Wow.
And I questioned that.
I just
prayer.
got really big chills there.
Absolutely questioned that prayer, that answer. For about 6 months. I was like, excuse me? That is not the answer I thought I'd been taught. That is, no, I just need to work harder. I can make this work. But to have it reinforced, and the reinforcement was like, I gave you the answer. You know what comes next. And I was like, no, I don't want that to be the answer. Like, don't want that to be the answer.
No kidding.
And yet it was the right answer, and it is the right answer. That is a struggle. And like I said, I don't know the end.
And you're making peace with not knowing.
And I also trust in an eternal perspective, not in a here and now perspective. And what that looks like, I do not know. I'm going absolutely on 100% faith. But I know for me and my kids, it's the right answer.
Wow. I am like very struck by that.
Please spam the comments with some extra gratitude for Donna for sharing such a personal story. I was so touched by her experience, and I can only imagine what a mind F that is. I am a polyamorous person, but I do really believe in like eternal love, and I believe in soulmates, and I think that relationships don't just exist in our one earthly whatever. Like I think they cross over to different lifetimes, and there's lessons. And I do believe in having a life partner. Like I want to get married. I want to have like a family and a person, and the person that I'm gonna marry or like I choose to be with, I am so committed. Like I am such a relationship person. I actually really don't date much for a poly girl. I like the term more so because I like the idea of not owning your partner and not limiting yourself from pleasure and experience. But yeah, I do still believe in like, a person. Because when I'm in, okay? I'm a committed girl. I thought I was going to marry both my exes. The difference is I'm allowed to get out. Now, marriage is one thing. Mormons believe they only have like one person, you own sex until marriage, that kind of stuff. I am not of the same belief. I understand the reasoning. I think being intimate with someone is a very spiritual experience, and I think it's a very sacred experience. And I, especially in my older years, am a lot more selective with who I open literally that part of myself to. However, I think that sex is different from intimacy. To me, intimacy is like all the things that surround the sexual act, baring your soul to each other, you're talking all night, getting to know each other like eye to eye. There's just the intimacy. But then I think you can have sex without intimacy, like a game of Monopoly or a glass of wine or like a bowl of ice cream. I don't know, like a simple, pleasurable human escape. The same as like smoking a joint. Is it bad for you? I mean, it's arguable. I believe in like investing in relationships and love and whatever, but I also think you should get your freaky deaky on sometimes. I had to ask Donna about this.
I've heard some Mormons subscribe to the belief of not using birth control. And this is for the idea that they believe that sex is only for conceiving children. What do you think about that?
That would not be in any doctrinal books at all.
So somebody grabbed it, took it, typed it, ran with it.
Yeah, right. That isn't part of Latter-day Saint doctrine in any way. So
Vibes.
yeah,
Good to know. Good to know.
yeah.
So then,
9 years on the pill. Yeah, used condoms. Yeah,
perfect.
vasectomies. Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
Big slay.
Right.
Wow, you really are a cool Mormon. Well, then I guess I really have nothing to elaborate on that.
Having children is a sacred responsibility, and it should be a serious consideration. And it is something between you and your spouse and God.
Absolutely.
How many, all those decisions. I have no business in anybody else's business.
True.
So you do you.
Yeah.
I live my life according to the law of chastity.
Right.
But I'm not going to judge somebody else if they don't. Like, that's not my place.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
at all. Like, that's something that I've chosen to believe and live my life in accordance with, because I think it helps me.
How do you feel about this idea, knowing that you are separating from your partner? Do you want to have another partner in the future?
Oh, that's an
a big
interesting
question.
question. So do I want to have another partner? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Not in order to complete me.
Right.
Right? Like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Like,
You're complete.
yeah. If there were ever to be someone, they'd have to be pretty darn special.
Right.
All of the pros and cons to that, there's lots of consideration there. Am I close to it? No.
Right.
But am I seeking it at this time? No.
Right. So it's almost that same idea of like, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What happens.
Right. Today, no, I'm pretty good.
Right.
But that's we're not closing a door either.
Right. So if this sort of thing were to open up into your life, your relationship with your law of chastity would once again just kind of evolve as your life moves on and who you're with and what your truth is. That's pretty cool. It's pretty simple.
Right?
I really like this conversation. I also have heard someone say, why would God give you pleasure centers if not to be used? Right? It's a built-in stress release. It'd be crazy just to use that just for making kids. Nonsense.
I think there's a lot of beauty in
Amen.
there.
I think so too. Is there anything that you would specifically say to people in your religion that maybe fall onto that more stereotypical judgmental side where they're really pushing beliefs on people and they believe that being gay is bad and trans people are gonna abominations, all that stuff? What do you have to say to them?
You know, there's this lovely saying, what would Jesus do? Right? I'm like, okay.
What would Jesus do?
What would Jesus do? Right?
That's
it's like,
so true. Jesus wouldn't be like, wrong.
Exactly.
He'd be like, come on over.
In his life, he absolutely advocated for the outcasts, for the downtrodden, for the women, for the children, for the people who were on the fringes of the society, for those who were looked down on and people threw stones at them. And he stood up for them. And he said, you're loved. If I can have those same eyes and look on other people and say, you deserve all the goodness. Just because you are you.
Because you're a human and you're alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. Period.
Well, there you have it, folks. Okay, isn't Donna a delight, you guys? You have to go check her out. She is such an amazing woman and she has so many offerings. Thanks for being willing to have this conversation with me. You know, just really trying to find that balance. And I hope that you can too. You're allowed to have different opinions than people. It's not the end of the world. It should be safe to disagree. Okay, before we go, let me tell you about today's look. The burnt book. I've got a little bit of like a sunburn makeup look going on that I saw floating around online. And then I'm wearing this thrifted red and yellow and purple newsprint dress, fuzzy black gloves, and I have like a newspaper hair thing. And I upcycled these boots with a whole bunch of like little cutouts and they say a bunch of questionable phrases on them. I left home at 17 and I ran away from my little small town. I was like, get me out of here. I need to see the world. And I really just like rejected my home. I went through a lot of trauma growing up, so I don't blame myself for doing that. But last year, I completely blew up my life. I had to leave my career behind. I had to move away from the city that I lived in for 10 years. And I also left a relationship that was like very significant. And that relationship was connected to my community out there. And so I lost it all. Like the span of a month. It was crazy. When I moved home, it was surprising how much I like found myself. It was difficult and it was like ego shattering and like pride hurting. So now I'm shooting this here in my parents' basement where I now live. I never thought it would end up like this, but I have learned so much in the last year of being here. Being in this town and surrounded by memories of my life, I realized that like my Bible and my book of scripture is like my just kind of my book of life and my experiences and my feelings and all these things. They follow me everywhere I go, and I have all of those experiences to teach me and to guide me. And instead of disliking those parts of myself or disliking those past experiences where I didn't make choices that I'm proud of, or I didn't act in a way that feels aligned with who I am, I just use them as they are my parables, you know? They are my metaphors. They are my passages that I turn to in times of need, I guess. They are my burnt book. Thank you so much for opening your mind up with me today. Don't forget to be kind to yourself and others, please. Okay? Love you. Bye.